It is season 1, episode 6 of the Classic Sports Review, and I'm Kirk Buchner. I'm the guy who, whenever you want to send hate mail about the site, it usually goes to me. Got a great hate message not that long ago on a show I did, but that's okay. Hopefully there isn't any on this one. But if it is, maybe you'll address it to my co-host, Glenn Paslawski, Buffalo's greatest triathlete. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you today, Kirk?
Living the dream all day, every day.
Gotta love it.
But since we're doing our first classic review on basketball, we need to get some people who actually know a little bit more than you and I on hoops.
Maybe actually played the game for a duration of time?
I played, just not in any kind of level that anyone would want to see.
My career ended in high school.
Well, I've got two people whose career went past high school. I have the leader of Bayesian Fusion. You can check that out on our Instagram, Bayesian Fusion. And for those who are not from Barbados, Bayesian is spelled B-A-J-A-N. I had to learn that one after moving here. Celia Collymore, she took Pace University to their only Final Four. How are you, Celia?
I'm blessed, Kurt. Thanks for having me.
So it's our pleasure. And we've got a star from Cal Bakersfield. Craig Jones, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How you doing, man? I'm glad to be here.
So when we're watching this game, the first thing that's the game we picked, we could have picked any Dream Team game from 1992. I actually didn't want to go to one in the Olympics because I found this gem, the United States versus Canada in the Tournament of America's game. And one of the first thing I did was sort of notice how far Team Canada has actually come, although they didn't qualify for the Olympics. But if you look at the players that you could have had if they actually all committed to playing for Canada, it would have been 11 NBA players, 11 active NBA players.
Yeah.
And I'd say 2 future All-Stars in RJ Barrett and Gilgeous-Alexander.
Oh, Shai. Talking about Shai.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I like his game.
Yeah, so like this was, but Team Canada 1992 had 0 active NBA players, but this wasn't a bad team.
No.
Was Bill Wellington not in the league?
I was actually kind of impressed, especially in the first half.
First half was a really good first half.
Yeah.
But yeah, to Glenn's question, Bill Wellington at this point was not in the NBA. He was trying to work his way back in the NBA. He was playing in Italy at the time. So let's just look at this roster. So the game in particular, you can find it easy on YouTube. I don't even know who was broadcasting this. I couldn't figure that out at all because
I was very worried when I loaded up the YouTube video and the Asian broadcast came up and like, oh boy, am I gonna have to
like, what is this?
Yeah,
I said, be patient, be open-minded.
Yeah.
Kurt would not have sent you a bad link.
So, sure,
I would have. I would have. I said that I found one with commentary. I just didn't say what language.
Right.
But yes, it did have English commentary. I think it was the Blazers, the Portland Trailblazers team, because apparently this was broadcast on NBC, but this certainly wasn't an NBC broadcast. It couldn't have been.
No, I think Steve Jones was the only voice that I really knew, and the other 2 commentators, I had no clue who they were. One
of them, apparently, they said he was a guest commentator, so he was the general manager of Team Canada. So I guess he was there to sort of provide some additional perspective. Specifically, the game in question, it's a Tournament of Americas on June 29th, 1992. The U.S. had already destroyed Cuba, 136-57. Cuba had already played Canada, beat Canada by 1 point, 79-78, but Canada had beat Argentina, 87-80. So Canada, and I didn't remember this at all, had been in the Olympics in 88 and 84. So in terms of what they were able to do, for that level, I mean, obviously no one was the Americans and no one was the Russians at this point, but Canada wasn't bad on the international level based on what was around them.
Right.
Let's just look at the American team first. We have 11 guys who are first ballot Hall of Famers and Christian Laettner. It's like one of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. Celia, I know for you, when I pitched you this idea, for you, it was Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Michael Jordan. And 1992, I was about 14 or almost 14. So I was really now getting into the game of basketball. I started around 13 playing within our high school setting. And there was the opportunity to play for Barbados, but I was still very young. And here in Barbados, most families, we have Channel 8. So I definitely was not watching the NBA at that point. But of course, you're hearing people talk about it. And I knew Michael Jordan, not personally, but so I was in love with his game. And I had all his shoes. So whenever those new shoes came out, I got my Michael Jordan shoes. Huge fan. Watching the game though, it definitely brought back a lot of memories. And believe it or not, even though I love Michael Jordan, in this game, I was most excited about Charles Barkley. Because
Yes.
again, I did not watch the game, but when I watched it now, thanks to you, I'm like, wow, love MJ, but Charles Barkley was the man of the game.
Yeah.
Craig, you're about younger than the rest of us, so like, who was your guy growing up?
Kobe was my guy growing up for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of got into LeBron. Well, LeBron was my favorite player like all time.
Okay.
But growing up, it was Kobe.
Okay.
Like, that was the guy. Yeah.
For me, I forgot just how good a player Barkley was, because he's become so successful as a commentator and a personality, and I'll say maybe one of the funniest broadcasters ever.
Him on the golf course, forget about it.
That's so true.
I mean, he's just
Like,
great.
I only watched him when he retired. Like while I was living in the US from 1998, I got to see more of Charles Barkley, but more on the commentator side. So then I would always say, oh my God, he's just a smack mouth, he talks a lot of crap. But when I watched the game, I'm like, wow, I see why he taught a lot of crap, because his game was really, really good.
Yeah, he was good.
Really separated himself from a lot of the other players for that particular game.
Because arguably at this point, behind MJ, he was maybe the second best player in basketball. At this point.
Bird?
For that game.
Are you referring to that game?
Like in this year, because at this point, Larry Bird never played a pro game after this.
Okay.
Because
he was shot and probably shouldn't have even been on the roster from a player standpoint, but from a marketing, a whole USA standpoint, he's a good captain pick to be that captain and promote the game, which is essentially what this whole USA basketball sending the pros was meant to do. And I can't remember who the quote came from, but yeah, this Olympics is not going to be competitive, but it's the only way we can grow the game.
And it did.
And here we are many years later,
Definitely
it is a global phenomenon.
And this was essentially engineered. Like FIBA had apparently wanted these guys, the NBA players, in the Olympics for a long, long time. And momentum sort of really got pushed within the United States when they lost in '88, because here they know, and they still know, that they're the best in basketball. But when you don't win the gold because you know that you can't send your pros, and this is also at a time when we look at '88, '92 is completely different. But in 1988, with the Soviet Union and the Soviet bloc, Russian players who were good enough to play in the NBA didn't.
Well, no, '88, we're still pre-Berlin Wall falling down.
Right. So it's not just them, Yugoslavia, which is giving us so many great basketball players now. But at that point, the best Yugoslav players were not going to beat the best American players, but they could beat the best college players. And this, once they send in I was reading a quote, it was Patrick Ewing who said, basically, we lost in '88. We lost this one thing, so they send in the Navy SEALs. And that's what this was. I mean, look at the rest of this team. David Robinson, another all-time great. Clyde Drexler. And he was the last guy chosen, if we don't consider Leitner, because that was a throwaway, because they wanted to have one college guy.
Like Drexler, like watching the game, it showed that the fans really love Drexler.
Yeah, he was definitely a fan
For me,
favorite.
even more than Michael Jordan. When you think about the
Even
energy
though
from
he
the
had a
fans when they
game.
called Drexler's name, I was very impressed too. Because I'm like, yeah, for me, he wasn't a big name for me back then, but you saw his presence and you saw the feedback from the fans.
That was also because the game was in Portland and he was a trailblazer.
He's a trailblazer, yeah.
Still works.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Works.
For sure. Chris Mullen, John Stockton, the mailman, Karl Malone, and Magic Johnson. And that's someone who, if you would have told me in 1992 that Magic Johnson is still alive, and I don't say this, I don't say this to be mean.
You're absolutely right, Kirk.
Yes, yes.
In 1991, when he announced that he had HIV, that was a death sentence then.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And for him to be not only alive, healthy, looking great, arguably the most successful in terms of business out of all of them, you know.
It comes down to mindset. It comes down to mindset. He's a fighter. You know, even though this thing could have disrupted his life and disrupted his family, he fought. And that's what winners do. That's what true players do. And he did that. And, you know, to have that, you know, for me, it's a lot of respect for him because like he could have just given up. He could have said, the world is watching me. The world is on top of me. But no, he fought. And to this day, he continues to fight. And it's all about the mindset of the athlete and how much you want it. And he wanted to live.
But and also too, even then I was reading, I don't remember this, but apparently Team Australia threatened to boycott if Magic was playing.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember when he first came out about being HIV positive, I wasn't sure whether the NBA kind of nudged him. Okay, you might not want to play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he retired for a bit. Which, I mean, this day and age,
but
he did come back
briefly.
Think about it.
Still, I mean, he lost some time.
When you think about it. So even this game in the beginning, the Canadian player, I can't remember his name, but his face got busted and there was blood all over him.
Yeah.
Right.
Number
so those
15.
are things that people are obviously worried about, which is normal. That's natural and normal for people to be worried because in basketball it's physical. What if I'm playing against him and I get hurt or I get cut and his blood goes on me? Like, so I would see why it would make sense for him to retire, but I honestly did not follow this story because it was very young at that point. So the curiosity for me now is, Kirk, I know you said that he retired, but then he came back and he played.
He came back for a little bit, but he was also a lot older then. I don't think he came back right away. And at that point, he just didn't have to. He invested, and this is what I loved about Magic to this day. Magic, when a lot of basketball players get rich, they don't necessarily give back to their community. Magic did and still does.
Oh yeah, build the entrepreneurship and the businesses in the community. Yeah, and he is an industry.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, like he backs up all his talk about raising black business, and a lot of them don't.
Yeah, and one thing I can say to you too is sometimes with life and challenges of life, it humbles you. And I think with his experience, he not only did he become humble, but he realized that his community was still behind him. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of his way as well to give back and realizing, all right, my basketball career is over. What next can I do? I have all of this money. The best thing to do is to invest and reinvest and add value to my community. So any of the younger players now, he's definitely a best practice or a model to follow. Because at the end of the day, when your basketball career is over, what next? And you can't wait till the career is over. You got to plan for it. What are you going to do next
when he was working with the Lakers recently? He was not in charge, but he used to help the rookies and guys that just came in the league on the Lakers with budgeting their money and finding a way for them to give back. Even if they spend money now, they can get it back later. You know, investing and putting their money into something where it's like businesses or just like food trucks. There's different things they could put their money into. I remember reading an article about that. I think it was last year that he was doing that, helping the guys, you know, budget their money and keep their funds always going and coming.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I mean, there's a whole 30 for 30 special documenting how athletes just pretty much blew through their millions.
Yeah,
Right.
I think
And the kicker is, I think, the Bernie Kosar story, where it was his own family that was bleeding him dry. And part of that was leaving them in charge of his money. So yeah, if you got a guy like Magic who's been through everything and can tell you how to manage your money, and I imagine rule number one is keep it away from your family, that's a good thing.
So that's what I got to remember when this whole site makes me a multimillionaire. Okay.
Kirk, you want to rule out Jasper? Jasper's not going to steal from you.
Oh, my dog. That's true. Yes. My wonderful dog. So we should look at Team Canada and who these guys were. And I had to look them all up. Well, all but two of them had to look up because I didn't know any of these guys. JD Jackson, two-time college player of the year in a different division, of course, but at this point he was playing pro ball in France. Ron McMahon, who just looked like an albino midget compared to all these guys, even though he's taller than I am, but he just didn't look the part. He was currently playing for Yakima in the CBA. One time he actually led the league in steals in NCAA. So, and you can see it with that guy's hustle. Watching him on offense was interesting, but he had to guard Magic and Michael Jordan in the same game, and it just wasn't fair. Oh my God. You got to give I say give the kid credit, but it was a boy playing with men. That's
just too small. That's just too small. I think the commentators tried to stroke his ego. And well, there's I think they alluded to Spud Webb, who was playing in the league at like 5'5" as a comparable, but even then, I mean, that's just not fair.
No. Trevor Williams, we didn't see much of him. He was played at Southern. David Turcotte, he was at Colorado State and a previous Olympian. Al Christensen. Glenn, you ever watch Kids in the Hall?
I never got into it, but I'm well aware of Kids in the Hall.
All right, because I thought Al Christensen looked like Kevin McDonald.
Yeah. I think that's a good look-alike.
Yeah, and for Celia and Craig, if you don't know who that is, that wasn't a compliment. You don't want to look like Kevin McDonald. Phil Ohl, I couldn't find anything about him. All I could learn is that he's coaching right now in Victoria. Martin Keane, he played pro later on in the Canary Islands. I didn't know they had a pro league, but I guess they do. Leo Routens, now him I know very well. He played for the Sixers in '83, only 26 games, but he has been a broadcaster for TSN, which is Canada's version of ESPN for the Raptors since day one. So I'm certainly very familiar with Leo. Apparently, he almost played for Team Lithuania because his mom was Lithuanian. He got asked to play for them, considered it because he hated the coach for Team Canada. So he almost did. And I found an interview where he basically blamed him for why Canada didn't make the Olympics that year. They almost did if they would have beat Venezuela. So this was potentially an Olympic caliber team. As weird as it is to say, it's just that the Americans were that much better than everybody else.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, the U.S. was playing the equivalent of high school teams throughout their whole run up through the Olympics.
Yeah. Gerald Kaznowski, two-time Olympian. At this point, he was playing in Spain. Mike Smrek.
Well, however you pronounce it.
I don't even know because they were pronouncing it differently the whole time. Here's the other interesting thing. Mike Smrek actually had already 2 NBA rings with the Lakers. So he was actually Magic's teammate. I didn't remember that at all. So I guess he was just sort of like the Adam Morrison of his day. Just this.
He played for the Mavs too, I think.
Yeah.
He played for 2 NBA teams. I think it was the Mavs. I can't remember.
See, I wrote it down. Chicago, the Lakers, the Spurs, and the Warriors and the Clippers briefly. And
that's what it was, the Warriors.
Later on, and they were saying, well, he's going to be invited to an NBA camp. He's playing his heart out. Well, he wasn't.
Now, did you play the drinking game that we devised every time his name is mentioned?
I'm not allowed to because Celia's on this call. And Celia's trying to help me get in better shape, and if I drink during this call, she's going to be very upset. And I told Glenn previously
Kurt,
that I'm
you do
afraid of
it when
Celia.
I'm not even visible, so I don't understand why today would be any different.
Ooh.
Wow, that didn't go the way I was planning, but because I should have drank anyway. Okay, fine.
But no, yeah, his name was mentioned frequently. And like, damn, this is like either a shot or a chug of beer every time his name is mentioned. And then looking at him, I thought he looks familiar. So I had to look him up. And yeah, he did his college ball at Canisius College in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's how I recognize him from.
Or as the commentators called it, Canisius.
Yes. Canisius.
Actually, when I was looking more up to, he's got a daughter that just signed to or committed to Wisconsin for volleyball, who's also 6'8".
Good for her.
No interest in basketball, and she's 6'8". Jesus. I don't get it. Then we had Greg Whittier, who at this point was a two-time champion in Greece, and Bill Wennington, who had already been playing for Dallas for 5 years, Sacramento, and he was in the Italian league at this point. And he would later go on to win 3 titles in the NBA with Michael Jordan and company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So again, it's looking back, these guys weren't bad. It's just how great the Americans were. So when watching this game, you get the feeling that at any time the US just felt like, okay, we can go to another gear and no one can stop us. So they're still trying to find each other. So they're still trying to figure out who. It's like they were passing too much when you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, like you said, it's because it's the first time they all played together. But also, I'll give this. I think Canada's defense in the first half kind of surprised them because they only shot, I think it was like 48% in the first half, which is like below 50. But they didn't really have a good first half for the caliber of players they are. You know, I think I put that on Canada's defense. Canada, they clogged the paint a lot on drives, like MJ and Clay. Even they went to the basket, it was hard for them. And then Canada has like their big guys are pretty big, so it's not like if they're just going in on smaller defenders. Like, you know, the paint was pretty packed. So and Canada also changed their defense around a lot in the first half. I think it kind of put America in a weird, awkward situation, like a spot in terms of like scoring. But second half, they figured it out by then, and it was pretty much game over.
I think the other thing too is just how much basketball has changed when you don't see even though the 3-point arc's in effect, the amount of 3-point shots taken were very, very low. Whereas now, if you're going to try to beat a team like the US, what a lot of teams will try to do is they're just shooting from beyond, like just trying to make it rain from as deep as possible.
Oh yeah, and that was evident in this last Olympic cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, as I was watching that game, you know, when the video started, I'm like, 2 hours? Oh my, 2 hours is a very long time. But you see when that game started and how everyone was playing, and trust me, when I look at the Canadian players, a lot of them are very tall and big. So you're hearing 6'8", you're hearing all of this height, and I'm like, whoa, these men are really big. But as I watched it, it brought back so many memories, and I got really excited. And then I reminded myself that basketball is the best game ever. You know, I love other sports, but that really got me excited. And it reminded
I have fun watching this video.
I love the game and how versatile players can be. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was like a 2 hours well spent.
I agree.
A couple interesting things. So Stockton got hurt during the game.
First minute.
Yeah, so he'd be fine later on to play in the Olympics. Larry Bird didn't play at all. So they didn't want him to go back, like do a back-to-back. At this point, he hadn't retired. I was seeing when he did. The commentary was making notes that they were hoping that he was going to come back, or the Celtics management were hoping that he was going to come back and be healthy. But he never did. He retired in August so the 2 months later, this was it. And there was a loud Leary chant because they really wanted to see him play.
Yeah.
Almost as if they know that his time was running out, which it was. They just didn't know how much little he had left.
Yeah.
I thought his presence was great though. So even though he didn't play, presence, his leadership, yeah, that made a difference. And who I can't remember the player, but was it Leitner? He was in college at that point.
Yeah.
Right. So you had from this age group, college player all the way up. I thought that it was a nice mix, and it became this is what the future of basketball will be. And I think the diversity of the different age groups and the standard of play, I think that was a good value add to the NBA.
I think it was interesting too that apparently at the time it was controversial. I didn't remember this being controversial, but this came back up in a recent comment from Jalen Rose recently that Leitner, because they wanted one college guy and they said it should have been Shaquille O'Neal, who went and had obviously a much better NBA career by far, but he didn't have nearly the college career that Leitner had. And people forget, as much as I sort of made fun of 11 NBA Hall of Famers and Christian Leitner is one of the most successful college players ever.
Okay. And you got to look at the source. I mean, we're talking about Jalen Rose too, who, I mean, going back, and if you saw with the documentary, Why Does Everyone Hate Christian Leitner, and maybe even the Bobby Hurley ESPN documentary, Michigan's a little salty about Duke and that they got beat by that university. And Leitner's Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collective. Well, if they were upset about it, they should have beat us. Right. And that's that whole attitude. And Christian Leitner had that. I mean, again, Western New York Buffalo boy. I mean, he had that attitude early on and carried it through high school and took it to Duke. So yeah, I mean, he was at that time, he was Mr. College basketball, consecutive Final Fours, 2 championships. So yeah, and again, we alluded to it earlier, if you want to keep that connection to college basketball, he was the choice. Obviously, Shaquille O'Neal was going to go on to be the better NBA athletes. And I want to say that Duke did beat Shaquille O'Neal's LSU Tigers, I think twice. But again, that just goes to show how much of a team game basketball is, especially at the college level, where you just can't have one man dominate versus those Duke teams that had Leitner, Hill, and Hurley.
Well, Leitner also has, I don't know if Leitner is really a good guy or not, but he probably isn't. But Christian Leitner looks like one of those guys who looks down on you, not because he's 6'8". He just has that face.
That we don't know.
No, that's what I say. I don't know. But Leitner doesn't look like Leitner looks like that he thinks he's better than you.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But again, he knows he's better. Well, from a basketball standpoint, he always knew.
I'm just talking like in the whole the vibe.
From a person standpoint, where if you're seeing him on the street and you're hanging out at a bar and he's just, you say hi and he's just gonna ignore you. That's
the vibe he gives. Whether that's who he is or not, don't know. But it makes him easy to dislike.
Right.
But
I'll give you that.
I didn't see that. I didn't feel that. It was, for me, watching the game, he's one of the youngest players and he only came on at the end.
Yeah, but you're the queen of positive, Celia. You see good in everything.
Why not?
Yeah, he came all in Carmelo fold out.
Yeah,
so
why not? It's easy for us naturally to make assumptions about people, and it's as if I'm someone who's very confident and I'm walking on the street and someone is going to say, well, she looks like she's cocky. Not a nice thing to say either, but I don't judge people based on appearance either. It's like, I can make an assumption about you if I've experienced you. If I haven't experienced you, well, I can't speak about you. I can make assumptions about what I think. But
we've all made assumptions about Kirk.
I'm not just the host, I'm the whipping boy.
But I think it was a nice dynamic. And again, I'm sure a lot of that had to deal with the coaching staff. When you think about who were the coaches for that all-star team, it is them knowing. When you think about Michael, I don't even want to pronounce Duke's, the basketball, the coach's last name. But I am sure he had a part to play with that because, yes, we're taking this all-star team, but we also want representation from college players. And I think that was a good...
And I think Mike Krzyzewski was on the staff, correct?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. He was one of the assistants.
Call his last name, but that's who I meant. Yeah, his last name.
Coach K. Yeah. One thing watching Barkley play, just the physical style that he had. playing with, it always looks like he's playing with the chip on his shoulder. And apparently he did when it came to Canada. I learned that in 1983, Barkley was on a team that lost to Team Canada in the World Olympic Games. And he's still bitter about it. Which is, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying he gave, I forgot, he had to shoot a free throw and he kind of like tucked one of the Canadian players that walked by. And he like looked at him, and even the way even when he played, like he got fouled, he would stare at the guy in his face and walk to the free throw line. Like it was personal for him. It wasn't just like another game. Like he wanted to make sure like he beat Canada again, you know, or beat them, sorry, for the first time.
Yeah, which again just sort of shows the level of talent that Canada did have, that they were able to beat a pretty good US team before. Apparently they also beat them in '82. In the '88 Olympics, they came within 4. Only lost by 4 to the US team at that point. So, but now, like Ewing said, it's sitting in the Navy SEALs. And Barkley took that in also because I think in the first game against Angola in the Olympics, he did the same thing. He elbowed another guy.
Right.
Nice.
He had the bet.
Barkley is a loose cannon. So he's a great player, but you know, today, tomorrow, you really don't know who's showing up today, just based on his attitude too.
Well, they pretty much did a whole movie based on his character. It was a terrible movie, Celtic Pride, where the
never seen that movie.
That's horrible.
Me either.
Okay.
The lead character played by Damon Wayans, but he opens up saying, "I'm not a role model." The same thing that Charles Barkley used to say. And I think that's why a lot of people love Barkley to this day, because Charles Barkley is there's no false pretense about him.
Oh no, you know what you're getting.
Yeah, he is who he is.
Yeah, and
get it, and you're not sure what to expect either.
Well, on the court, yes, that's very true. My favorite Charles Barkley quote. There's so many, but he said, "I don't know much about Angola, but I know they're in trouble."
I like that.
Like right before they did that. Did any other player sort of stand out for the rest of you? If I can just start. I knew that Magic was in the tail end. I didn't realize that he was playing so much. So Magic was very impressive to me. That at this point, you know, like he hadn't played, I think, in a year.
I mean, he was still a 32-year-old athlete, which isn't old.
No, but there still would be some rust. You would think, because he hadn't played at that level, and you'd never know.
No.
I just saw him in that game more as the leader, cheerleader, you know, trying to just kind of keep the energy up, keep the tempo up, encouraging fellow team members. He played well, but I will always go back to Charles Barkley being the man of the game for me. But Magic did his part, and he played his role as the leader and being able to champion the other players and keeping them encouraged.
Now, how hard do you think it is, though, for everyone, with the exception of Pippen, who was always playing alongside of Michael? All of these guys, Leitner included, were the man on their respective team.
And, you know, I think that if that affected this game, because there was occasions where there was too many passing plays, and just take the shot or drive to the basket. You don't need to dish off and try to get that pretty play. Just finish the play. And for, what are we talking about? 10 egos on this team. It seems like they really didn't want to step on anyone's ego and
I think
the ball.
Because there were so many superstars, everybody expected that one or two people were going to dominate. And I think that they also needed to prove a point that we can still play together as a team. So there were moments when I watched the game where it was like, yeah, they are playing as a team. All of them have their strengths. All of them are great, but let's see what we can do where we can put in a couple more passes and actually still score the ball. So there were moments where I felt like, they're playing together. They're now feeling the tempo. They're now getting to see how each other play, and they're just gonna try their best. And then there are moments where some of the team members had to step up. But it's hard. It's hard. Like, they're all stars. They're all stars.
I mean, they're all athletes that are supposed to take the last shot.
Yeah, exactly. I think for them, it was just more so of getting comfortable with each other and understanding each other's games too, because Patrick Ewing and Karl Malone kind of play the same, except Pat Malone take a couple shots here and there. So they're on the court together with Robinson sometimes. So it's hard for them to really circulate and play while you have another big, dominant big man down there right next to you. So I think that's why they struggle a bit in the first half also. Like in the second, I don't know if you know, in the second half, they made a lot of touch passes to each other in the post where they got nice little layups, they got dunks. It was just more so getting comfortable with each other in that area. And even with the guards, like, I don't know if you guys noticed, Magic, to me, he kind of had the guards like, okay, you go here, you do this, everyone slow down, everyone stop. Like, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're doing. And even when he went off for a little bit, it wasn't, the energy was different. As Cedar said, to me, Charles was the best player in this game because when he came in and he was aggressive. As soon as he touched the ball, he was like, we're going to do this is what's happening. He got layups, he got fouls, he got guys active, he made passes. He just changed the whole like energy for the USA team at that point.
Yeah, there was just, I think you're right. There was so much. I think that sometimes the US were trying to play a little bit cute just to see what it is that they all had.
Yeah.
And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I think my favorite play was just Mullen doing a no-look pass to Drexler who just jams it in. Like that was incredible. Just to have that type of court vision when you're not actually seeing anybody there and just knowing where your guys are. And these, again, like I think we've all said, these are people who had played with each other for only 2 games at this point and a few scrimmages. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all they did. This was also a magical moment. Not so much this game in particular, but raising the level of basketball, which is what this was intended to do. Right now, the United States, even if all their players would commit, because they don't, and then that's not necessarily a dig at the US, because same with Canada. A lot of great players opted out for their respective.
Well, it's just time when it's a hard time to do when the Olympics are held. I mean, especially given the current NBA seasons that we've had, having to compress a season last year and having to do the same this year. And even during regular season, you're talking about the NBA usually done by June-ish, and then your Olympics are usually August, maybe September, depending on what country they're having it in. That doesn't give you much of a break to recover. No, it really doesn't. But the whole goal was to elevate the game, and it did. The country, there are now, at that time, you had one real basketball power, the United States. And it wasn't so much that Russia and Yugoslavia were that good. They were just professional. They were professional in their own era, or own area rather. And they were in the military, but they were getting paid to represent the basketball arm of whatever military arm of the branch they were with. So that's how they remained amateurs. Yeah. And now you've got Argentina that's really good. Yes. Canada's gotten a lot better. Brazil. The former Yugoslavia with Serbia, Croatia. Greece has gotten a lot better. France is incredible. Spain has gotten really good. And Russia will always sort of go up and down. Lithuania. This is truly a global game, and it's all because of these 12 guys. Any thoughts on that? No, for sure. I mean, you just look at how the NBA draft has evolved and where these teams and GMs have to go to look for talent and where they are going. And that started because this dream team opened up the game to the world. So, and who's
my bigger hope? Of course, I don't play basketball for Barbados. That time has passed for me. But hopefully, when we think about the Caribbean, Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaica, being able to get to that level. Because when you think about local players here, especially for the men here in Barbados or the young boys, that's like a dream, right? And if we can develop basketball to that point where, yes, they're going to go off to college, but being able to represent their home country in the Olympics, I think that's a big dream for Barbados. That's a big dream for the Caribbean. So that dream can continue because there's so many young players who watch the NBA, who watch the Olympics. And the hope is that we can start to fashion basketball and develop talent, getting them to see the bigger picture and seeing the opportunities to play not only in the NBA, but play on the world stage for Barbados or for the Caribbean.
Because for you, Celia, you almost, because you had knee trouble, because you would have played probably in Europe for a few years, right?
In college, I was having issues with my knee, but then my last year playing for Barbados, I blew my knee out, ACL, MCL, cartilage. And that year, our technical director at that point, he was looking to get myself, Wanda Maynard, Morris out into Europe. I blew my knee out and I was like, all right, that's it. But there would have been the opportunity, but you know what? It happened. And I obviously had to look to do other things, and I got my master's, and right now I'm running my own business. So
and
it all happened, but my bigger dream is to add value to basketball. I'm just trying to get my business in a place where I can walk away and there are other people running my business, but I still do have a lot of dreams for basketball and being able to develop our young talent, specifically girls, but the opportunity to add value to young men as well.
Nice.
So in Barbados, the athletes, what sports are they gravitating to? I mean, the young athletes that show promise and desire and love for sports, what are they going to?
Cricket is usually the main sport in Barbados as a youngster. Cricket was my first sport too. It's more popular. You watch it on TV, you have a better chance of representing the whole of the Caribbean playing cricket than any of these other sports. But track and field is probably number 2. But cricket is definitely the most sought after sport for youngsters.
Okay, so there's definitely room for basketball to grow in Barbados.
Oh yeah, but there was
it has
grown. I left in 1998, so from 1996 to the early 2000s, players were leaving Barbados and represented in college.
I'm saying
so
basketball
that was
has definitely
where
grown.
basketball should have been. The development should have really started and continued from that point. Something happened. I can't tell you if it was the administration. I can't tell you what happened, but we went in a decline, and we should not have been going in a decline. We should have been building from that 2000 game to this point. And now we're in that rebuilding process, but it's really about having the right people in administration and also getting the support from the government, because the athletes do need this whole high performance type of play. They need that structure. They need that corporate support. They need to not have to worry about food and shoes and gear and all of that. We need support locally, but I also want players to see there's an effort that you have to put into. You can't just have the coolest shoes and think that you're the best player. You actually have to practice. Every day you have to practice. You got to think about becoming the best player that you can be, but also each person doing that and coming together as a unit, right? So it goes both ways. We work really hard from the government, from the corporate side, but the players also have to work hard, and they have to get the support from their parents, their families, their friends in order to move the sport forward.
So, Craig, a question for you, because I know when I was talking to your brother John, so he was recruited at some point and then was in the U.S. for a year before going to college. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, I did it my senior year of high school in San Diego, and then I went to college here.
But then how did you make that move then, going from Barbados to San Diego? Who found you and was sort of growing your talent?
It was, I guess, it was meant to be, really, because I was playing in a tournament in Barbados, the under-19 tournament, and there was a coach there in Barbados. He had a showcase. He had a camp going for kids. And I actually went to the camp a day before, and the next day he came to just watch some games, and he actually saw me playing in a game, and he liked how I played, and he spoke to my parents right after the game, and I ended up playing AAU basketball that summer. And I had a couple offers, but I had nowhere to play, because I have to be in America to continue getting offers or be in some sort of a advanced basketball system. So my parents got a financial aid, and the school in San Diego said they would take me. He was connected to the school, and my parents, he basically sent me there for a year to finish up my high school, and then I ended up going to Cal State Bakersfield.
Okay. And I want to close off with a question, I guess, for you and Celia. Right now, the NBA is doing a feeder program or a feeder league in Africa. So like NBA Africa. Now I'm wondering, would something like that work like NBA Caribbean? The only thing that I think would be a stumbling block is, and I don't believe there's like a really good court here on the island. No, I mean like a good court where you can actually have
the gymnasium.
So
Not outdoors, but indoors.
Yeah. So
but like for something like that, I mean, like is
it's possible.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wanted to add to what Celia was saying earlier about in terms of making basketball in Barbados better. Facilities, I think, was a major thing for me, especially when I played professionally. Because I would, after a season, I want to come home. I want to see my family. I want to relax, but I still want to train. And the only issue with that was that when I came home, I couldn't get access. I can't get access to the gymnasium, or I have to go outside. And then even if I go outside and train, it's not the same as if I train indoors. Because obviously, like, the ground and it's not the same, And I find that it made it difficult because I had a couple kids that I used to like work with, that obviously like they knew who I was before I left. So like I would come back and like play and train with them. But it just, I don't know. For me, I think personally, they have to improve facilities and access for athletes that when they return home. Because if they can change that, then guys can also still help other kids, help youngsters, or help people that they worked with before. Show them show them new drills, new skills, new things to work on to help improve, the overall aspect of basketball. And to call on what you were saying in terms of basketball in the Caribbean, I think it would be more so facilities because Barbados has a lot of youngsters and kids that are good at basketball. They have a really good understanding and feel for the game. It's just more so for them being able to put what they know to use. We don't have a lot of tournaments throughout the year, and then there's not like to call on the tournament thing. If losing my train of thought. If the NBA was to do a Caribbean thing, facilities, like I said, but I think more so than anything else, you need to have a correlate. NBA has this thing where they have programs for kids. And they build these kids up through the programs. So when they get to a certain age, NBA already has an eye on certain kids. They don't have that in the Caribbean. They have NBA has that in Africa now for about, I think, 5 or 6 years, where they go and they have camps for youngsters and they watch these guys grow up and they help these guys go to college. They don't have that in the Caribbean. So they will have to start like at a younger age for this thing to build up, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. Facilities is a big deal. And when you think about there were many times, we were talking about bringing the Harlem Globetrotters to Barbados, bringing all of these different groups to Barbados, but it comes down to the facilities. And it has to be an investment. So the government has a gymnasium, but right now that goes towards all sports. If they were smart enough, they would start to create a plan or a schedule to say, all right, this is for basketball, this is for volleyball, this is for badminton, whatever, but we need our own space. Basketball needs its own facility, and we might need a couple, not just one. We might need 3 or 4 different parts of the island where groups can play, where children can play, where we can really develop the talent. Craig also said access, and that access is really support. Yes, we need support from the government. We need them to see, we need them to be visionaries. We need them to see the value and the benefits of basketball, not just in Barbados, but out in the world, and bring in people. Imagine if we had facilities, other NBA teams can come in and practice for the summer.
Who wouldn't want to go to Barbados? I mean, yeah, you get the facilities. Everyone wants to go to Barbados.
When I was playing at Pace University and we got the new gym, New York Knicks used to come to our gym.
Yeah.
They used to lift weights and they used to go on the court, right? So it's just kind of like if we have visionaries who really see, you know what, we do need these spaces. We do need these basketball courts. We need access for young people. We need to see that the world can come to Barbados. This is the time that we should be building. Right now.
Is there a strong governing body for Barbados basketball?
I didn't hear that.
No.
Is there a governing body for Barbados basketball? Like I know we got U.S. basketball,
but I don't know. There's the Ministry of Sports.
Okay,
Ministry
and it covers
of,
all
right,
sports.
Again, it is who are the leaders. It comes down to leadership and visionaries. And if we don't have those people, all they're doing is collecting a paycheck, but they're not really planning for the future.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but
people who are passionate about sports and want to see the progress of sports, you need those type of people in the role so that sport can progress. We don't just want administrators. We want visionaries, and we want people who can actually make things happen.
I agree completely.
Didn't and I know this is a non-Bayesian who did this, but, and I could be mistaken on that, but didn't Usain Bolt do something here in terms of a facility?
There's a Usain Bolt facility through the University of West Indies. Even though he's Jamaican, it's really about representing the Caribbean. University of the West Indies represents the Caribbean. So there are people who were like, but he's not Beijing. Why are you naming it Usain Bolt Center? That should really be in Jamaica. If you're gonna name it after an athlete, you need to name it after like Ryan Brathwaite or Obadeli Thompson. But UW's place was, this is the University of the West Indies.
West Indies.
And Usain Bolt,
I thought it was pretty cool.
Catch in terms of
I thought it was pretty good.
But I don't think that Usain Bolt ever said, well, let me invest some of this money into Barbados.
Okay. No, I was wondering. I had no idea what he may or may not have had to do with that.
Yeah.
So I guess not much.
I don't think he did anything.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, because this island is full of, it's an athletic wonder, and there's no reason I thought, and I thought this almost immediately after coming here, that it couldn't be as successful as Jamaica in terms of what it does on the international stage. Would the two of you agree on that?
You said it couldn't be, or it could be?
It could it be if it had the same infrastructure?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
I think so.
We have a lot of talent here. We have.
I was just about to say that.
Our talent is our people. Yes, but we need support. We need support from communities. We need support from businesses. We need support from the government. And these are the things that will help to shape and change the trajectory of sport in Barbados. And it has to be a collective effort. All stakeholders on all levels have to be willing to participate. But it's hard to find that because some people just want a trip. Some people just want a post, but not realizing the type of effort and energy it really takes to take sport to another level. Again, when I first came back to Barbados, my give back was to work I was the PR for the Basketball Association, and just being in that space, they're not even listening. I had all of these ideas, other people had ideas, but they're so caught up in just right here that they're not looking for the future. And I said, look, I have a business, I'm trying to grow my brand, I'm gonna put my energy here because you guys are not even seeing. Right, so I want to add value, but if you're not even giving me a chance to add value and you're using me against me, then there's no need for me. Let me go focus on Beijing Fusion and let me put in the time and the energy and effort to take my brand to the next level, to take my brand globally. Because it doesn't make sense trying to add value when everybody else is fighting against you. When we are, as sports people, we leave our countries, we leave as leaders and we come back as leaders, right? And you're supposed to accept us as leaders and use our talent, use us to help push forward, but you use us against us.
I see it. To touch on that, right? I think is a fact of them not knowing or scared of change, because you would have gone overseas. So you would have seen so many different outlets. You would have seen how people set up things, how people run certain operations. And then to come home and see the way it is, you're like, this is not acceptable at all, especially if we want to change or get better. And I can agree firsthand, because I remember my very first year when I went overseas to play, and I came home, and I was trying to just go shoot on a court, And I remember I was talking to the coach at the time. I was like, is it possible for us to help practice in the gymnasium? Because I remember talking to my coach overseas, and he was saying outdoor courts are fine, but we don't train outdoors. Like outdoors ruin your shoes, it gives you knee problems, all these things to go down to me. And I was like, wow, I would have never known if I had not had this conversation, because outdoor was all I really knew till I came to America. And unless I played like twice in the gymnasium and I was in school league, and even then school league is mostly outdoors. And I remember we having this conversation, and when I turned professional and I came back home, I was trying to set up this thing where the gymnasium is open for runs or open for like just guys that want to come in and work out, and it was shut down. I remember I emailed the Minister of Sports at the time. My dad helped me with all this information and stuff, and it was shut down. And it also limited me because when I come home now, I can't train. I can't train other guys. I can't work out with other guys because basketball is only going to get better if you're around people that have improved, you know? And it limited me coming home, and I started coming home less. So when I come home, I wouldn't really be looking to play basketball or be around the basketball scene because at the point it's not benefiting me or getting me any better. So it also limits everything. You know, it all starts at the top, really.
It does. It really starts.
They just need to change their mindset and just how they view sports on a whole. You know.
I don't think they need to change their mindset. I think they need to be shipped out. And new people, honestly, new people need to come in. Yeah. If we need to see change, we need the right people.
Yes, I agree.
We do. And I mean, they didn't even give you options. They can say, okay, Craig, if you guys want to play, even if there's a fee to use it.
I mean, you know,
give you an option.
I was honestly expecting for them to charge me. That was my thing. Even if they charged me, I would have been fine with paying the fee and going in and working out, because that's kind of how gyms work here anyway. You have to pay a fee if you want to court for a certain amount of time.
They didn't give you options.
No, you know. So I was like,
they're using the gymnasium for those big events. You want to make big money. So when there's crop over events, when there's gospel events, that's how we want to use the gymnasium. Why are you calling it a gymnasium then? Do you know what the gymnasium means? Do you know where that started from? Do you understand sports? You know, so it's just kind of like education. If people understood the history of sports, then they should not have called the space a gymnasium.
Agreed.
Well, I mean, the gymnasium's got to be empty at some point where they could let you.
It's always empty.
Okay, then that's pointless. I mean, Kirk can speak to this from a hockey standpoint, to where your ice arenas are open 24/7 because they can fill them.
Oh yeah,
and you're talking about the kids anywhere from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Their ice time is like 4, 5, 6 in the morning. So why can't gymnasiums, particularly if they're empty, but if they're empty all the time, that's the revenue source where you can sell an hour at a time and increase basketball and get basketball camps or basketball leagues to use the facilities.
Okay, well, then is that something that could be brought up to Celia, when you brought all that stuff up before, when you were in associated with the government, that obviously wasn't the government that exists today under Mia Motley. No?
Not a rich government. All of them are to have the same kind of mindset. They make sport at sport.
Okay.
So that reverts back to Craig's point.
Understand? So now we have some younger people. This young man that I mentor, I mentor him. I taught him at university. I was with the Academy of Sport for about 3 years, where I taught sport in the global marketplace. And he's very passionate about sports. He want to develop sports. That's who I'm going to have the conversation with, because he is going to make things happen. He's young. He's energetic. He has goals. He's going to be traveling. He's going to be having conversations around sports. That's who we need. I'm not going to hurt my head with them. It's the future. We need to have conversation with the younger people who want to see change in sports and willing to put themselves out there and have the tougher conversations. That's who I'm going to have the conversation with. And he and all his friends, they will be able to help to create change here in Barbados.
Okay. Well, come for the U.S.-Canada debate and then stay for the learn about Barbados basketball. Thank you all for being part of this. As always, at notinhalloffame.com, we've got a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm going to do a bit of blatant self-promotion if I can. Hey, if you haven't bought my book, buy it. It's out. Chavo Guerrero, he's a legend, and I had the pleasure of helping him write his autobiography before he died. Now available on Amazon. Check it out. Chavo Guerrero, instant classic. Glenn, you and I will have another show. I'm going to pitch you another idea.
Sounds great.
I think I might have a guest for that one, but I'll let you know that a little bit later. The weekly Hall of Fame show with Evan Nolan. How the hell did this go #1 with Andrea Tessman? That's where I got hate mail, actually. I got hate mail for insulting the captain and Tennille. I was told that I'm an idiot that needs to go back to the crevice of which I came. So that was
your point. That's bad.
Yeah, so I had that. And also this crap was on national television. We just uploaded, or no, that's going to be uploading soon, the pilot of The Master, starring Lee Van Cleef. So lots of great shows on this channel. Check them out. Stay safe, everybody.